While I am sure the vast majority of my audience would 100% agree with this statement, I'm also just as sure that a huge portion of my audience would miss the deeper hidden agenda behind this. I'm sure a lot of folks are like, well, it's about control. They want to disarm us. They want to put us in camps and do whatever they want with us, just like in all these evil, terrible, horrible socialist places around the world. It's more than that. It is much more than that. In today's video, we're going to cover this. The reason a lot of people miss the true hidden agenda is because statements and images like this evoke emotion, fear, concern, anger, consternation, and as soon as you find yourself in an emotional state, you can guarantee that you've stopped thinking. Now, real quick, last night on HBO, there's this series called The Last of Us. It's basically zombie apocalypse. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of the game. It's been around for many, many years. I used to stream it on Twitch back when I was on that platform. They interjected a little bit of imagery into the story that hints at what they're going to do. In the story, just real quick, the guy on your screen has to get the girl across the country safely through all of the zombies and all of the raiders in a post-apocalyptic world. And he has an AR-15 and he's got a backpack and he's got a handgun. And they decide to stop in this little out-of-the-way place and he abandons his AR-15. He does what? He makes the excuse to the girl that, well, it's getting hard to find ammunition for this, so it's not even really worth carrying. So he tucks it away in this hidden building and just walks off, and all he's got is his revolver with a few rounds in it. He left behind an AR-15 with a full magazine because it just was too heavy to carry. See, this is the subtle imagery. This is what they're trying to do. But real quick, before we get into the meat of today's video to show you the real agenda, I want to say thank you. I always want to be diligent about this and let everybody know how much I appreciate them showing up here at the channel. Whether you agree or disagree, whether you're here for PSYOPs or Venezuela or Antarctica or any other topic, you're welcome. As long as you maintain a level of decorum. Always enjoy the comments. Thank you for sharing. Those of you who have showed up over at the Patreon channel where it's only $1 per month, thank you. Thank you so much. You have made a huge, huge difference in my life, more so than what you know. It's even less than $1 a month over there. If you sign up for an entire year, Florida Maquis, what's the difference? At Vimeo, where we put the videos up, as opposed to Google servers, you can take the gloves off. And in fact, it's kind of worked against me a little bit. Many people have gone over there, looked at the videos and said, Florida Maquis, I want a refund. There's too much R-rated, too much graphic, too much skin. I just can't handle it. No problem. First 90 days, first 3 months, sample all you want. There's hundreds of videos over there. If after that point, it's not for you, $3 right back at you. No harm, no foul. Thank you for trying. Very much appreciate it. So would love to have you over there. It's definitely worth it. Ask anyone down in the comments section who's a member. Is it really worth $1 a month? I think they would unanimously say yes. Absolutely. What's the goal? The goal is to create videos and information that show people the tactics and techniques being used by the federal government to keep you from thinking about things. They want to maintain you in a state of emotion. Now, some might say, well, Florida Maquis, don't I have a reason to be concerned or angry or upset or, worried about the... Yes, of course. Absolutely. But that's not an excuse to stay in an emotional state. Once you get rid of the emotions, you can start to think and see things clearly. Now, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to see what's going on in the economy. Things are getting very expensive. Things are scarce. People are suffering. People are having a hard time financially. That's nothing new. But ask yourself this question. Let's go back to our very first image. Joe Biden is coming for your guns. Well, guns cost money, don't they? Ammunition costs money. Going to the range and training, that costs money. All the different things that go with the gun, the scopes and everything else, even the lubricants cost money. If you can't infringe the gun directly, why not just infringe the money and get people down to just basic necessities and see what happens with the guns? What if I told you they're going to get you to hand them over willingly because it's the moral and right thing to do? Florida Maquis, that will never happen. Just stick with me. This is going to be what they do. It's what they're going to try to do. They're going to use financial hardship to get you to choose between having a gun or paying a bill. And it behooves them to drive up the price of weapons and ammunition. Meaning, what do they have to do? They have to create a demand for it. So they create the demand for the weapons and the ammunition. What does that do? Drives up the price, makes them worth more. And it gets to the point where either you can't afford it or you have to use it, the money and the proceeds from it, to take care of something else. Now, how do they do this? How do they get people to do this? I know this seems like it's completely unattached, but it is. Pentagon distances itself from Minihan memo suggesting possible war with China in 2025. I'm sure almost all of you have seen the general statement that came out, Air Force General Mike Minihan, head of Air Mobility Command, about potential war with China in the next few years. He said his gut is telling him that in next 2 years, we're going to be in a shooting war with China. Believe me, if they didn't want you to know about this, you wouldn't. You see, they let the guy's statement go out, and they let it go out to social media. And they didn't redact it. They didn't shadow ban it or suppress it like they do channels like mine. They let it go out. Why? Because they knew it would create this huge shockwave of fear across the country. Oh, man, war with our biggest trading partner? Well, the economy is going to get nothing but worse, and things are going to get more and more expensive. Man, I am really going to have to cut back. I am really going to have to make sure I have enough cash on hand, and I'm going to have to make some hard choices. Now, follow along. Gun buyback program. $250 per weapon. Oh boy, wow, I've got 6 or 7. I don't think I really need 6 or 7. I could probably do with 2 or 3. Maybe I'll go. Now, Florida Maquis, that's New Jersey. That's the liberals. So is Sacramento. Sacramento Gas for Guns buyback runs out of incentives in 45 minutes due to massive demand. And that's in California. And you can look it up. It's everywhere. Look up, when you're done watching the video, just search whatever search engine you want, gun buyback near me, and I guarantee, unless perhaps you're in Montana, there's one close to you. They're all over the place. Why? Because people need the money. People need the money. Now, here's the thinking part. Here's the part where I'm probably going to make a few people mad initially. But just give me a minute. What if it was a choice between getting your car repoed or selling your gun, and this one is directed at the ladies, or picking up a second job? We've talked about this before in the evenings. That might be easy cash, real quick, but morally gray area, somewhat ambiguous. Guys, have you ever heard of these programs where you can go turn people in to repo companies? What if you were in kind of a tough place and you'd missed a couple of car payments and they were going to come get it, and you had a choice: sell your weapons, catch up the car, pay everything up, put some money in the bank? Or would you, if you knew other people in that same situation, would you turn them into repo rewards for the cash bonuses and then use that money to pay your car bill off to catch up with some cash in the bank? Which would be the morally more acceptable way of going about it? Turning in other people, being a weasel, or selling your gun? Ladies, which would be the more morally acceptable option? Sell the gun, take the money, catch up the car payments, get the second job at perhaps the morally gray area place for working, and then earn the extra cash that way, or let the car be repoed. Now here's the part that's going to blow people's minds. Well, letting the car be repoed is basically what? You going back on your word. You signed a piece of paper saying you would do something, and then you didn't do it. So that's morally gray. Working at some type of adult establishment. I tried to use somewhat of a PG rated image here so as not to be too offensive to the censors. But you get the idea. This, morally gray. This, not so morally gray, morally wrong. Or sell this. Sell this thing that you have that you don't really technically need. You see, morally, that would be the right thing to do, wouldn't it? But I would never want to sell. You never want to. And the same thing goes for guys. Those of you who think I'm picking on women, I'm not. Would you be a weasel? Would you be a backstabber? Would you turn other people in for a bonus and then use that money to pay your bills? Something morally gray. Or would you sell your weapon? Or would you go back on your word, even though you signed a contract saying you'd make payments on car and let them take the car? Would you do that? What's the morally right thing to do? What's the morally right thing to do? You see, there's a lot of people out there kicking into their emotions right now. Florida Maquis, you're showing only limited options. Well, the reason I'm showing limited options, pay attention here, is because if there were, let's say you're in a position where you're behind, you've missed a car payment or two. If there were options to earn extra money, to catch things up, that had no moral flavor to it whatsoever, and you didn't already do that, that just means, well, you're already morally bankrupt. Because if you let one car payment go by and let two car payments go by, and you didn't make any kind of a plan, if there were options out there that had no, like I said, no moral flavor to them whatsoever, they were perfectly fine, and you didn't already avail yourself of that, you wouldn't be in this position. But you see, this is what the government's trying to do. They're turning the screws. They are making people look at things differently. And it's the idea of feeling versus thinking. Before we can define critical thinking, you need to understand it's very important to distinguish between this. You can't do both simultaneously. It is impossible to do both simultaneously. I found this graphic and it was so appropriate I had to use it. Because over here, signs of feelers, people who operate in feelings only, morally strong. It's really not exactly that. They're morally driven. It's all about feeling like you're doing the right thing. It's all about how you feel about what will other people think, as in seeks consensus from others, focused on relationships. What will others think of me if I do this or that or the other? You see, for guys, and this is where it's a little bit different between guys and girls, if a guy gets his wheels repossessed, his guy friends are like, come on, man. There was nothing you could do? There was nothing you could do. Really? Nothing you could do? Whereas sometimes with girls, they're, if their girlfriends saw them slinging beer and chicken wings on the weekends at Hooters, they'd judge them. They would feel like judged. It's like, if they lost their car, it'd be like, oh, they would probably be able to forgive the repo more than they would forgive the girl working at Hooters to keep the car from being repoed. So it's a very different thing between men and women. But certain friends may or may not know whether you have 1 weapon, 3 weapons, 7 weapons. You may not even have to tell them that you sold this weapon, went to a gun buyback program, and got money. You see, there's no moral issue here. In fact, some on the liberal side would say it would be the most moral choice you could make. So, this is the game. When you see images, when you see this going all over the country, all over the world, about this idea of war with China in 2025 and some general yammering on about this, if they can redact my channel, if they can redact the Patriot Nurse, if they can redact Jennifer, they can redact anyone. They can keep anyone or any information from your eyeballs they want to. If you're seeing it like this, on this kind of a scale, with war with China 2025, you know that the government has a motive for showing it to you that way, on that scale. You see, the idea is this: the poorer you are, the more thankful you are for the government. And the more likely you are to support them, because they're going to be that knight in shining armor. See, I said, there's a hidden truth here. Here's the hidden truth. They don't like the fact that Americans are Christians, and that when things get tough, we turn to God, and we pray, and we turn to each other. They want, for whatever reason, for whatever need you might have, to turn to them first. That's why they have a 911 system. 911 is the most socialist thing in your life. Let me say it again. 911, first responders, police and fire, all that is the most socialist thing in your life. It's not the taxes pay for it. But they want you turning to government and the community first before you turn to God. They definitely don't want you counting on yourself. You see, for them, this idea of you going and being a weasel, guys, and turning other people in for the bonus, you see, that would be you being self-sufficient. No, they don't want that. Ladies, those of you who think I'm picking on you, they would hate the idea of you going and getting a second job at a place like Hooters to pay off your car note. They'd hate that idea. They'd absolutely loathe that idea. They want you getting rid of the gun, because that would put you in their camp, and that would make you much more dependent on them for your protection. That's why I use this image. They don't want you protecting yourself. They don't want you protecting yourself at all. This is their preferred option. Sell the guns. Sell the guns. And that's what this is all about. This is about government being the number one provider of everything in your life. It's really that they don't want to put you in FEMA camps. They just want to be who you turn to. Self-reliance, too much competition. God, way too much competition. And this is truly, when people talk about the rise of Antichrist, this is it. This idea of not turning to God, not praying, not adhering to biblical principles. The idea of do what you will, and when bad things happen, turn to the government. This is the deeper truth. It's not about self-defense. It's not about defending your stash or your TV or your car or your house. They just want whatever problem you have to be solved by government first. It be the first place you go. In every sense. When things go bad, pick up the phone, call 911. They've been training this for years. I'll leave it there. God bless. Like, share, subscribe. See you guys next time.